everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I'm Jody Grunwald. This week, my guest is Tanuja Dehne, President and CEO of the Geraldine R Foundation. Tanuja shares about her childhood and how she is the first child in her family to be born in the United States. She thought early on that her passion was agriculture and wanted to become a farmer. Her first job in high school was milking cows on a dairy farm in Easton, Pennsylvania. After going to law school and building her career path, Tanuja worked for Energy for 12 years. She served as Executive Vice President, Chief Administrative Officer, and Chief of Staff. She says that the gift of her work at Energy was seeing that you can have a purpose-driven life and career. Listen in to hear more about what made her feel this way. Tanuja left Energy with a calling. She had the inclination and inspiration to participate in a yoga training program. All of her past experiences, as you will hear, have positioned her to be ready to take on the incredibly important role that she is in at the Dodge Foundation. The Dodge Squad, as Tanuja calls them, is in the midst of a transformation, both internally and within their community work. They are on an equity journey. Listen in to hear more about the incredible work that they are doing. We are in control of how we show up in this world, Tanuja says. You are worth the investment. Be intentional about self-compassion. We are not perfect, and perfection is not the goal. She has a lot of gratitude for her career path, who she met along the way, who helped to lift and mentor her. This is truly an incredible conversation. Please subscribe to the Today's the Day Changemakers YouTube channel. Stream this podcast on all streaming sites. Like us on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day Live It. I am also the CEO and co-founder of the Zach G. Applauder Kids Foundation, a not-for-profit organization that is making a difference in the lives of children with financial barriers who are looking for an ongoing creative connection through the performing arts. Please visit applauderkids.org for more information. And for more information about my coaching and consulting services, visit todayisthedayliveit.com. Have a great week, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I am Jody Grunwald, and as I say every week, I get to interview the most incredible people who are doing such amazing work in the communities in which they serve. And today I have Tanuja Dehne from the Geraldine R Foundation. Hi, Tanuja, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me here today. I'm excited.
So am I. I was looking so forward to this interview. So as I do every single interview, I'm going to read now. This is the only time I do that. And you have such an incredible bio. So everybody give me a second because I really want to share some of Tanuja's wonderful accolades here. She is the president and CEO of the Geraldine R Dodge Foundation in Morristown, New Jersey. The Dodge Foundation has distributed more than $500 million in grants and technical support to New Jersey nonprofits with a focus on the arts, education, and environment, and informed communities, including local journalism and poetry. Tanuja is leading Imagine a New Way, the Dodge Foundation's transformation to become an anti-racist organization centering its work on racial equity and justice while designing a new model of philanthropy that democratizes power, redistributes wealth, and shifts economic control to communities in ways that are just and regenerative for people and the planet. Tanuja is also a public company director and former C-level executive for Energy Inc. She's an award-winning corporate attorney, human resources professional, and a community volunteer who thrives when making a positive difference in the lives of others. She frequently is called upon to share her expertise across the globe from New York, Austin, San Francisco, Brussels, and Davos. Tanuja is a member of the board of directors of Granite Point Mortgage Trust, Inc., where she serves as the chair of the Nominating and Corporate Governance Committee and Climate Real Impact Solutions 2 Acquisition Corporation. Tanuja recently served as a senior advisor on corporate governance matters for the B Team, an NGO focused on mobilizing global leaders to drive a better way of doing business for the well-being of people and the planet, which I definitely want to talk more with you about. And you are also the co-chair of the advisory board of Drexel University's Gupta Governance Institute. She is on the faculty of NACD's Board Advisory Services and is an NACD Board Leadership Fellow and was recognized as one of the 2018 NACD Directorship 100. There's so much more that I could have read from Tanuja's bio. But wow, I always ask every guest this question. After you hear that back, I'm exhausted just reading it because it's so incredible. I know the work that goes into, you know what I should say? I can't imagine the work that goes into getting all of these accolades. But wow, what do you think when you hear that back?
I think what a full and rich and blessed life I've had. And I stand on the shoulders of so many who have allowed me to flourish and grow. And I know it kind of gets me a little misty, but in this point in my career, because like I said, I've stood on the shoulders of so many, it is very much a mission and purpose of my life now to pay it forward and to mentor and to sponsor and to share my learnings and to give back in any way that I can, because I've been so blessed. It's my turn to give, and it's well, I haven't really actually heard anyone read it out loud before, so thank you for that.
No, absolutely. I think it's incredible because I know when it has happened for me, I always think I did that. Like, how did that? I remember that. And so I think it's incredible to hear your accolades. I think sometimes we need somebody to read them to us. Isn't that interesting? I don't think we really think to do. Who would do that, right? Who would say, here, can you please read my accolades to me? Nobody. But at the end of the day, when we do that, when we do hear them, it gives us a moment of pause, like you said, and almost makes you misty to say, wow, that's me. I don't think we pat ourselves sometimes enough on the back for the work that we do. So thank you for sharing that. It made you misty. I think that's great.
It did. It really did.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. So we're definitely going to get to so much that's in your resume, but I always like to take everybody a little bit back to learn a little bit more about my guests because, right, you didn't start here. You definitely didn't start here. There's so many things that built your way up here. So I want to go back a little bit to where you were raised, what type of child you were. I think it's really always interesting when I find the most shyest child who was like me, who wanted to hide under the desk, when they were in school, and then all of a sudden we're running podcasts or organizations or whatever we're doing. I think it's incredible to show people that, we change over time. So tell us about your childhood and the type of child you were growing up.
So I was born and raised in Easton, Pennsylvania. Let's see, it's the home of Binney and Smith Crayola crayons, Lafayette College, Larry Holmes. I went to college in Easton, Pennsylvania as well at Lafayette College. Let's see, I am the third of 4 children, and I have 2 older sisters and a younger brother. I am the first child in my family born in the United States. My family is from India and Malaysia. My brother, who's a little younger than me, was also born in Easton, Pennsylvania. We had a great childhood. It was one though where it was the 6 of us. We did not have extended family. All of our grandparents and cousins were in different countries, so we were a little community of our own. But it was a really, I don't know, kind of an idyllic childhood. Lots of running around, lots of friends in the neighborhood, Girl Scouts, track and softball. My parents were pretty strict. Actually, they were very strict. Education was everything. And, playing and goofing off and all of those things were fine after you did all your chores. And so I would say, honestly, I actually raised my family very similarly. Little less strict, but very focused on getting what needs to get done, and then you get to play. Right. But it was good. It was fun. It was, there was no doubt that it was also, there was challenging moments of it. But I would say that my parents really instilled education, learning, and doing your best was really very, very important.
That's great. That's great. So were you more of the outgoing because you were doing so many different things?
It's funny. I was, as a third kid in a very busy household of 4 kids and 2 working parents, I think I was more on the quiet side, a little under the radar. Don't make a lot of noise, don't make a lot of waves. My sisters were a good amount older than I was. They were in high school when I was in elementary school. So, my parents had to focus on them for a while. And so, I think it was like, pay attention, stick to the books, don't make waves. So I think I was pretty quiet, but I did have a lot of friends. I would say it's only as an adult that I realized that I'm an introvert that has a very outward facing presence. I public speak, I'm out and about, but I'm an introvert in nature.
Yeah, and there are people that are introvert extroverts or vice versa. I know that I am totally just like you. I love being out and about and being social, but I also need my alone time. And I think it's good when we're aware of the type of person we are, because sometimes, right, we force ourselves. Like some of those networkings, they're not as fun as we'd like them to be when we're introverts at times, if we're having that moment. So I think it's good that we figure out who we are. I don't know that years ago people even thought about those things though. Like, oh, I'm an
Oh. It really, honestly, it happened sometime in my 40s when that book Introvert came out and everyone was talking about it. And I think it was the first time everyone was kind of classifying themselves. And I was like, I think I'm an introvert. And even though I like being out and about, but it does take a lot of energy for me when I am out and about and networking. And it took me a long time to build the skills of networking and seeing the value of it, because it was pretty intimidating for me.
Oh, absolutely. I always talk about that circle, the circle everybody makes in a networking event where they don't let anybody else in and you walk in by yourself. You could feel that. Even when I say it, I get that feeling in my stomach. It's like you walk in and you're like, oh, I don't know anybody here, but I need to be here for X amount of reason. And then you have to try to make your way and make friends. It's for us introverts, even though we can be extroverted, that is definitely what can be overwhelming. So I understand exactly what you're saying. It's not easy.
I actually gave myself a job in networking events to kind of like a challenge. And that was to one, get out of those little circles, because that's my path of least resistance, and to go find the person who's standing by themselves and spark up a conversation. Because I was definitely that person. And once I kind of gave myself an assignment to do, it actually made it a whole lot easier. I would say I'm an introvert and also kind of type A.
Oh my gosh, there's so much. So that's exactly, I do the same thing. I always search out the person standing by themselves. It's just the easiest thing to do. So that's so funny. So for those listening who may not love networking, that's your new assignment. Tanuja just gave you your assignment of what you can do to feel a little bit more comfortable. So then when you were growing up, what were your thoughts as you were going through high school? What were you going to do? What were you going to do when you grew up? Did you think?
Oh, it's so many different things. There was a while there that I was going to go into agriculture and be a farmer. My first job in high school was actually milking cows in a dairy farm in Easton, Pennsylvania. And I went to the governor's school in Pennsylvania at Penn State between my, I think my sophomore and junior year in high school. I spent the summer at Penn State at their governor's school for agriculture. And it was an amazing experience in science, genetics, agribusiness. And I really was kind of convinced that I was going to do that for a while. And then, I went to college and was a liberal arts major, and then realized that I really loved government and politics, international affairs, and your traditional liberal arts, anthropology and sociology, and shifted gears. So yeah, I was going to be a scientist / farmer, veterinarian. I still have family members saying that you still could go back and be a veterinarian. Not at this point. I have my 2 dogs. I'm happy.
There you go. Wow. Look, so that's incredible. And milk, I'm still stuck on your first job being milking.
Yeah. It was a great job. It was a dirty job. It was incredible. It was, you wake up at 4 a.m. It's a twice a day job. The cows need you. It was, great people to work with. And you just learned so much. And I was pretty young. And it was, I wouldn't change that experience for the world. And not to mention that it's a really great story, because no one actually can see me and say, oh my gosh, you used to milk cows.
No, when they go around during those networking events and they ask about, where they ask the fun fact or anything like that, you've got something you can always use, because that's a great fact. People probably look at you and go, there's no way, I just can't envision, right? That's awesome. Not now. So then went to school, and what was your first job out of college?
So I went to graduate school, and I was your typical graduate student, but also one who had to pay rent in Philadelphia. So at one point I had 5 part-time jobs to pay the bills. So I worked at Amtrak as an assistant, a temporary assistant. I worked at a Whole Food store, but it wasn't Whole Foods. It was like a natural vitamin store. I was a legal assistant. I was a graduate assistant, and I can't even remember what the 5th one was, but I remember it was 5, just to make ends meet. So I had all sorts of different jobs and experiences. I would say, again, I wouldn't change any of that because it was so formative in my personal development. Working retail was an absolutely humbling experience. And I just think it was just so important for me to have that experience. And then, working as an executive assistant for a period of time. First of all, I learned incredible skills, incredible computer skills, but also, again, another one where, when the narrative is flipped and I'm in a positions to have executive assistants, it just brought a different perspective for me and a great deal of respect for all the different people who work to make an organization hum.
That's very well said. And absolutely, it's amazing. We don't realize when we're doing that, that's our training ground for then when it does flip. Because, for many, it does flip, and then you wind up having assistants yourself. And I was in the same position as yourself. And I have to say, without those people as my right hand, I don't, I couldn't stay on track. So I totally agree with you. Everybody within an organization, no matter who you are, is so vital and so important and deserves to be treated exactly the same in the respect category. It's so important for everybody to know that. So I think it's great that you shared that, and how when things flip, you really do get to change the narrative. Sometimes it's when you're in that position, when you were growing up, it might not have been as easy. And I will say retail, I worked in retail too. And boy, I give a lot of credit to those who are in the retail field.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's hard work, and you're, again, public facing, and you have to deal with a lot of different personalities. And now I like to be the personality that's easy. I try. I try.
Yeah, the one to put a smile on their face. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes you walk up and you could tell it's been a tough day for them. And you just want to, just give them a smile as you walk out, so that they can maybe have a little bit of a better day. So then, I just love that you shared about all of your different roles, because I feel like people always think, oh, well, if I'm going to school for this, then I only should be focused on getting a job while I'm doing that in this, as opposed to really expanding, because you learn from each and every one of those jobs that you had, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I went to graduate school to be a professor. I was kind of set on that. I have so many professors in my life that I admire. I had no idea how hard it was going to be. And then I'm in graduate school and I realized this isn't my calling. My husband's a professor, my father's a professor. I've got lots of professors in my family, in my life, but it is a calling. And so I had to make a big pivot at 22, 23. And that's when I applied to law school. And it was good that I had some time between college and law school to really appreciate the education experience and my personal investment in that. So that when I left law school and was looking for a role and a job, I just was a little bit more mature in understanding what it is that I wanted out of my career and my life, and what I was capable and willing to invest into it, because it's what you put into it. And I don't think I was ready for graduate school the first go around. So I thought I knew what I wanted, but I really didn't. So it's all those kind of experiences they build upon themselves, even though some of them were harder than others. But then after law school, I got a job in Philadelphia as a business associate. And I think I felt just a lot more ready and well positioned to, take it all in and do it and go in full force. So I would say that's my first professional job.
Yeah, no, that's great. What do you think changed?
A couple of things. I think I just grew up, those early 20s. Again, having to pay my own bills, make ends meet, have a bunch of jobs, really just being on my own was a humbling, sobering growing up experience. I think, I had to pay for my graduate school and my law school, and it was my personal financial investment. And that was really, when you're really investing in it, every dollar counts. And I did in law school at the time, it was $60 for every hour of class. And I said, anytime if I was gonna miss a class, I was throwing $60 into the toilet.
Mm.
I was that focused on it because I was paying for it. And I just needed to make sure that I was getting everything out of that investment.
I love that. You went down to the hour. I think that is great. And and anything we do, or we decide that we want to make a commitment to, and then we move away from it. It's thinking about what was that investment. And we also, right, have to understand that our time is always worth money. So where are we spending our time? So we could think about that in general, not just in school, but in general. How are we spending our time and the value of each hour of our time? So that was great that you did that at such a young age, to think about, wait a minute, that's $60 an hour that I'm giving up if I don't go to that class.
I'm glad it was a lesson learned a long time ago.
Yes, of course. So then you made your way to NRG Energy, where you held fabulous positions and did amazing work. And I'd love for you to share with our listeners what you did for them and how long you were there, and just a nice background.
So NRG is a power generation company. It's still around in Princeton, New Jersey, and all over the country. It's a great company, and I started as a lawyer, a securities lawyer, doing what I was trained to do, and then moved into different roles, become the head of human resources, the chief of staff, chief administrative officer, and it was just an incredible opportunity over the 12 years to experience so many different experiences, from the incredible transactional work to the people work. There were 11,000 folks at one point. That's, it's a great deal. That's, of responsibility. And the culture was, it was an experience I just didn't have before. But I think, my biggest takeaway, the gift of NRG to me was seeing that you can have a purpose-driven life and a purpose-driven career. We were doing some incredible things about, at the forefront of the clean energy future and sustainability, and what that means for customers and stakeholders. But what really resonated to me is what that meant for future generations, for my children, for my grandchildren, for the children and grandchildren of our employees, to just the planet itself. And so that was just catalytic for me. So that's the gift of NRG to me, was a purpose-driven life. And that's just, you kind of hum along in your career and your life and so long, and to be able to have that kind of calling happen, I'm just so grateful for that. Not everyone has that. And then there's lots of people who have that from a very young age. Mine was kind of in the middle.
Yeah. It's just, I think it's maturity, like you said before. As we get older, we realize, right? They say when we start in this world, we're kind of narcissistic as babies, and as we grow up, that changes over time, and then we realize that, there's a lot more out there that we can help and do and be a part of and create. And sometimes for many of us, that light switch goes on, and we're lucky enough through our career to be able to do the things we love. But that's wonderful that you felt such a purpose there. And I know that when I read something in your bio, it talked about mobilizing global leaders, and I'm reading here, to drive a better way of doing business for the well-being of the people and the planet. So that to me sounds like such a focus for you in general. And that started at NRG.
I started at NRG, and then after I left NRG, I worked as an advisor for the B team, which is the organization that mobilizes global leaders. And I started to kind of bring together these parallel paths of my life. So I had a corporate life, and then I had a robust non-for-profit life as a not-for-profit volunteer, a pro bono lawyer, and a trustee in a number of not-for-profits. And so at the B team was where all of that was starting to coalesce. So this governance expertise, the not-for-profit passion and expertise, and just coming together in a way that, this calling that was calling me, that there's something bigger for me. I'm just a small person in a big world, but can do something. It started to come together there. And that eventually, positioned me to be ready to take on such an incredibly important role at the Dodge Foundation, an organization that's in the midst of transformation, important transformation. And so just kind of bringing all those different experiences together and acknowledging that and being aware of all of that to lead the organization during this transformation. And it's funny how the stars align, right? Things happen for a reason. And sometimes you just kind of have to let it happen as well.
Oh, absolutely. I do believe that everything happens for a reason. So you have this calling at NRG, you match it with the work you're doing in the nonprofit, but then you decide to change and move out from working at NRG to go to Geraldine R Dodge. What was the pull? What made you transform to go from one place to another?
So I'd say there's an important thing that happened there was a 3 or 4 year intervening period between NRG and Dodge. So, and that was kind of that moment of actually just kind of finding myself and coalescing what that calling is. And that is where I had the time and the inclination and the inspiration to take on, to participate in a yoga teacher training program. Mm-hmm. And it was a 200-hour program, and really focusing on the yoga practice, all 8 limbs of yoga, if anyone is familiar with that, including the physical practice, but all the meditative practice, and really dove deep into mindfulness, meditation, yoga, and then teaching it. And again, bringing some of these skills that I had brought to the table, but then in a different way. And then the beauty of that was just a whole new community, a whole new set of friends and experiences and connections. And it was, through that experience, again, just coalescing all of it to make me ready for this big role at Dodge. I think it would have been a challenge to jump from corporate world to philanthropy without having that time and space to decompress and to find myself and to figure out what is the best leader that I want to be in this. And it's a different environment, and it's no less difficult. In many respects, it's even more challenging. But how to do that in a mindful way. And so I really do enjoy incorporating mindfulness and movement into our kind of regular practices at Dodge. I just think it's especially this past year where self-care is so important, and intentionality and taking the time and the pauses. So again, Jody, it's all the stars align and things happen for a reason, to make you ready when you're ready.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And what you said is so true, in that the nonprofit sector and the nonprofit world is often looked at as, not as hard as the corporate world, to put it simply. A lot of people start out thinking, oh, I'll work for nonprofit, I'll do good, and it'll be easy. It's not. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work, more hours, and it's just as hard and just as difficult. The only thing is it's I call them the nonprofits for impact, as opposed to it's the only sector that calls themselves what they're not, and the only sector that calls themselves what the IRS calls them. So that's why, for me, it's all about the impact that they provide. So I borrowed that from Simon Sinek, which I'm sure you know who Simon Sinek is. I borrowed that from him because he did a whole talk about the importance of nonprofits looking at themselves as for impact. And with the work that you've been doing with yoga and mindfulness, I think that ties in very importantly too, is that, that is an impact that you're making on yourself, a positive impact. So thank you for sharing that too, because it for so many people, they want to do those things that you're talking about, being more mindful, taking more time for themselves, being true to themselves. And they keep saying, I don't have the time. What do you tell those people out there who say that, then they're not making the time, but they know that they so badly need it? What advice do you have for them?
Well, we're in control of our destinies, and we're in control of how we react and show up in this world. We have so much power, but folks sometimes don't realize that because we feel powerless. And so I think first it's making the time for yourself. You are worth the investment. My mother gave me the best piece of advice when my first son was born. And that was, the screaming newborn baby. And I was crying myself. And she says, you need to take care of yourself, or you cannot take care of anybody else. Go upstairs and take a shower and let me hold this baby. And but this has been an important mantra that she has kind of instilled and shared through all of our lives. You must take care of yourself. You cannot take care of anybody else. It's the mask, the oxygen mask. But again, easier said than done. And so what I like to do is, first of all, be intentional about self-compassion, which is in non-judgment. We're not perfect. Perfection is not the goal. Little teeny tiny steps, taking even, let's say, 5 minutes for yourself, whether that means just standing up, shutting down the computer, leaving your phone behind, and just taking a little walk, taking a little breather, or a small step, drink a glass of water, do something for yourself. And then you'll start to build a practice. It's practicing just a little bit more every day, but we have to make the commitment to ourselves. We're worth it. You're worth it.
That is so true. That is so true. And we need more positivity and more of that flow. And like you said, this year has been so difficult for so many. And it is, I love that you said too, you made it so simple. Just go drink a glass of water. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that, but that is hydration in itself is so vital and important. So you could break it down to just a simple glass of water. Incredible. Thank you for that. That's great.
I do that often when I'm starting to feel funky or my head is starting to hurt, to be honest. I just get up and have a glass of water. And it's mostly my head is hurting because I'm dehydrated.
Right? It's simple.
I'm constantly telling my kids, go drink some water, drink more water, drink water. You're going to feel better.
That's awesome. That's important. And you mentioned judgment. And on here, we talk a lot about, on probably almost every podcast, I'm on this mission of less judgment, more vulnerability equals better connections, because when we can be who we truly are with those around us without judgment, we can lift each other up. And I think that's just so important that we're there to support and lift each other up. And mentorship, you mentioned that earlier, also another piece of what we talk about a lot on this podcast, the importance of having those that will help lift us up. So it sounds like you've had those people along the way to help you do that. And what would you say to those people if you could? What would be like a message that you would share to them? Because probably some of those people don't even know that they were mentors to you, right?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for appreciating me. Thank you for seeing something in me that I could not see in myself. And so, I'm 50. I just turned 50 like less than a month ago.
Oh, happy birthday.
I have a half a century of experience to like get to a place that seems pretty peaceful. But it's not all peace. It's just how do you manage it? And so I totally recognize that we're in different places in our lives. We bring to the table different things, and everybody's different. And there's just, it's hard. Sometimes it's easier, but you know, I there are people who are there to support you, and you are somebody who can support somebody else, and that is rewarding. It's so rewarding. I always, say to folks and kind of, mentoring circles, to be sure that they have their kitchen cabinet or their board of directors. And it may change over time, but these are the people around you who you seek advice from. There could be people who are older or senior or supervise you, and people who are kind of at the same level, but then all those who you supervise, or those who you're parenting. But that kind of 360, which evolves over time, that kitchen cabinet, is so crucial to have like a network of people to bounce things off of. But it's just as crucial that you're part of others' kitchen cabinets. You're part of others' board of directors. And that'll change over time, because you're going to learn so much. But again, it's kind of easy for me to say after a lot of years of just kind of living on this earth.
Listen, we're in the 50 club together. I'll be 50 in October. So
happy birthday. Welcome to the club.
Thank you. Are there shirts and is there a handshake I need to learn? Well, but one of the things you said that's so true is now I just love giving back and doing everything I can to fill my buckets and my cup, right? And that's what it's all about. So I definitely want to talk about Dodge, because I know that you said something that's important. You're in the midst of this transformation and you are leading the way of this transformation. So share with everybody more about the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation and what you're talking about when you say transformation.
So first, I just want to be clear that I'm leading with a team. This is what we call affectionately the Dodge Squad. This is our staff and our board. Together we're doing this, because together, if we don't do this together, we can't do this. And this is a transformation internally and externally, a transformation in our work, our day-to-day operations, how we work with each other, but also our transformation externally. We are focusing on root cause and repair of structural racism and inequities in New Jersey. We are shifting our work. We're an organization that's been in place for 45 years that has done critical, important work in the state, and we honor that and are proud of that work. But part of the transformation is meeting the moment. So Dodge has been on an equity journey for 5 years, and with the pandemic and the calls for racial justice that came to the fore last year, we were positioned to take action and make this commitment to become an anti-racist organization and to shift our work and put action towards. It did not happen overnight. It didn't happen last year. We've been on the journey for some time, but this was a catalyst to say we can do it. We can be flexible, we can be agile, we can step back and change how we work. We don't have to do things the way we used to do them, and there's some things we must preserve. But it's big, it's a lot. But I think one of the biggest things is really leaning into trust-based philanthropy principles. Dodge has been living many of these principles for years and years and years. Respect and trust are core values of the Dodge Foundation. So building on that, building on the collaborations, we're leaning into simplifying things for our grantees, simplify grant guidelines, applications. Last year with COVID, we just switched to general operating support, like many, many other foundations did as well. We're looking at all of the resources that we have, our time, our treasure, and our talent, our endowment. How can we make the greatest impact? But what's really important is that the recognition that at Dodge, we have power, we have influence and voice. So what can we do to amplify the voices and the movement makers, the organizers, the leaders who've been doing this work for years. We're newcomers to this movement. We recognize that. We approach this work with a great deal of humility. We're new to this. We're going to make mistakes, but we also have this power and influence and voice. And so how can we use that to help the movement? And then just to the point about wellness and well-being, this work for movement leaders and organizers, community, grassroots leaders, this is hard work. This is generational work. And one of the things that we're really recognizing is that wellness and well-being are so critical. And so what can we do also as we think about supporting our not-for-profit grantees or the community at large to be able to sustain and do this work while taking care of themselves? And that's really important to me personally, just the things that we've talked about, but it's important to the movement because it's hard. And so you talked about not-for-profit leaders running a not-for-profit and impact organization. It is so hard. Fundraising, the work itself, putting yourself and your vulnerability out there on the line every single day, it takes a toll. So we're thinking and exploring about ways as a philanthropic organization, what can we do to support and strengthen those individuals who are doing this work so they can take care of themselves?
Well, being the leader of a nonprofit, myself, we thank you. As I stand here from others as a CEO of a not-for-profit, I can say that we thank you for that, because honestly, I don't think that is looked at very much, about the fact of how difficult it is, especially when you're starting. If it's not a bigger organization, the smaller organizations that start from nothing are even harder. And I don't know that everybody realizes that at times, because you're trying to make something out of nothing. It's not something that's 500 years old or 100 years old. And so it takes a lot more time, a lot more energy, and you put your heart and soul into every single day. So thank you for the acknowledgement, because it means something to those of us who are out there every single day, that funders and those who are at the forefront of creating change, making change, and are able to listen to our voices and want to hear our voices. So I thank you for that very much.
Thank you.
No, no problem. I had, it's so wonderful when doing these podcasts are awesome, because although I know a lot about, those who come on, I always learn so much more about the work they do and who they are as human beings. And it's such a gift. So I thank you for sharing your gift. There's definitely going to be nonprofits out there, and this, Tanuja, that want to know, how do they work with Dodge, right? What do they have to do to work with Dodge? Is there an introductory way? Is there something that they need to do to introduce themselves to you or to the organization? What is your advice on that?
So what I would say is that, as I had mentioned, we are looking at all of our practices and all of our grant making and all of our grant making guidelines. I would say, please kind of stay tuned and watch and see what we're doing. I had just issued a president's blog in June where we really honed in and sharpened our focus on our strategic direction. On root cause and repair of structural racism and inequities in New Jersey. And we'll continue to put more specificity around that as we explore all of our portfolio work and the new bodies of work, what we're calling Imagine a New Way grants, and in our entire portfolio. We expect in 2022 that we'll be issuing new grant guidelines and more specificities. So I would just say, please just kind of keep watching what we're doing. And we hope to, open applications up, which is new. But also just please be patient with us, as we're in the midst of all of this change. No, that's a great question. We have been on this equity journey for 5 years. but the application process has not been open. And so what we're really trying hard to do is figure out a way to open that up, and, kind of open up Dodge a little bit more in different ways. But we also want to provide clarity so that we're not wasting any organization's time. That is not our intent. We also don't want organizations to twist themselves into a pretzel to kind of fit a Dodge mold. That's part of our transformation and our change too, as we think about leaning into trust-based philanthropy principles and becoming an anti-racist organization is kind of decentering us and recentering the community. And it's just a different way of thinking. It's just a different way of operating. We're still kind of getting used to it.
Well, that's good. So it's stay tuned for anybody who's interested in with you. And I think that's great that they know, that everybody knows that now, and that you're putting out information when you can. And the work you're doing is vital and important and uniquely different. The thought process is uniquely different. And I love that the whole yoga and meditation piece and the wellness piece you're putting into play into the work that you're doing in general, which is, I think, incredible. You're teaching so many others about self-care, which I think was put on hold for a very long time before the pandemic. I think the pandemic made people realize that self-care has to be something that's in the forefront. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I absolutely think it has to be prioritized, and it has in many cases been prioritized. I mean, as you know, I straddle two worlds, the not-for-profit space and the corporate space. And even in my corporate boardrooms or speaking on organizations on corporate matters, self-care is also prioritized because, our workforce, our people, have to be safe first. And then they have to be well.
Yes.
In order for them to show up, whether it's via Zoom or in person. And so prioritizing self-care, but prioritizing people has become a top of the agenda item in boardroom conversations. And if it isn't, it's something that I'm pushing very hard for, because our people really, how can we hum without our people? And we have to kind of meet our folks where they are as well. I mean, things are changing. We've had a year and a half in this pandemic where many of us organizations have proven that they can work remote. This concept of FaceTime, it's reevaluating that. There's pieces of it that are very effective, and there's pieces where, sometimes just giving folks some autonomy and space to do their work. Not to mention all the working parents and caregivers in the last 18 months. We just have to finally, prioritize families too.
Yeah. What I hope, and honestly, what I hope is that the other leaders who listen to this hear those words, because I think sometimes everybody gets so strapped in to go, blinders on, goals we have to meet, things we have to accomplish. And they don't realize that if they take a step back and take better care of their team and themselves, they actually can move faster and reach their goals more easily, as opposed to consistently being in that scarcity model of fear. And that when you're in that space, you don't take good care of yourself. And that's a lot of cortisol being released within the body, as we all know, which is very detrimental to our health. And so we need more endorphins and dopamine now going on. So those are the good chemicals that we need in our body. I want to ask you the last question I ask every single guest of mine, and I want to thank you for your honesty and for sharing so many incredible lessons learned and things that people can walk away with when they listen to this. But I am even so curious as to what your answer is going to be to this. If you knew then what you know now, it doesn't have to be one thing, but what would you say that is? And it could be that you're talking to your younger self. What would you tell your younger self, or any lessons learned that you could share that you haven't yet?
You got this. You're strong. You're smart. You're beautiful. You got this. Don't sweat it. You got this.
So you think so you would tell yourself back then, like if you knew then what you know now, is just more confidence, would you say?
Yes, definitely. The thing is, I have a 13-year-old daughter. I've got lots of younger people who I pretty much share the same message. Sometimes you just have to experience and grow into it too. But my mom said it to me all the time. She didn't use those words, but she very much was very positive, with me, and so was my family. And I think that helped me grow into this confidence. But I think sometimes it's our own journey to get us to the place where we can, believe and live into the good advice that others have shared with us.
So that's a great way to put it. And confidence, I think, is what some of those who have such great opportunities in front of them may not take because they don't have that confidence. So it is sometimes just a little tap on the shoulder to say, you got this. That can actually launch somebody. It could be one sentence. You just don't know what that sentence is. That could change somebody's entire day or their world. So it's incredible. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience today? Any other messages that you think are pertinent from the things that you've learned along the way?
All I would say is thank you. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to have had this time and this space to have this conversation with you, and to kind of walk down memory lane a little bit. It's a real gift. It's not one I get on a regular basis. And so thank you for that. You'll have made the rest of my week.
No, thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad I can help you walk down memory lane. I think sometimes we do forget all the things that helped us create who we are today, and all those wonderful experiences we've had, and even some of the challenges, right? Those are what create who we are today. So thank you for that and for sharing.
I'll tell you, I need to make a few phone calls. I got to go call my mom. And I've got to go call up a couple of my mentors and say, your ears are burning today because I was talking.
Oh, that's awesome. So I encourage those out there, become a mentor if you're not right now, or find one. Because I still have, I don't know about you, Tanuja, but I still have plenty of mentors and I love meeting new ones. We learn, we'll always be a forever learner. And that's what even at 50, right? We're still learning. We've got lots to still learn.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your heart with us today, your experience with us today. I so appreciate that. I hope you'll come on and give us an update as you evolve and Dodge evolves.
Absolutely. It'd be my pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. So I'm going to say what I say at the end of every single podcast, besides thank you so much to my guest, is that today's the day. You cannot go back to yesterday and you do not yet own tomorrow. So what are you going to do today to take one small or large step to get yourself closer to the goals that you have set? Thank you everyone for listening and watching, and I hope everybody has a fabulous week. Again, thank you, Tanuja. So great to talk to you.
Thank you.